And for the record, Chairman, before I came up here, I practically gave 6 or 9 months of every year in forestry, so I know it too well. I suppose the first question I need to ask, because so many people are on about it, when will you start compensating people for the ash dieback?
Well, I mean, as you'd be aware, there is a scheme currently in place, but I am aware of and have been aware of the, I suppose, dissatisfaction of the current scheme, and that's why I commissioned the independent report, which was published just yesterday. I don't know if you've had a chance to read it yet, but it's an independent report into how the department dealt with the ash dieback issue. It has a number of recommendations. There's 13 in there in total. Many of them we can deal with straight away, and they're in hand. And there's 3 then that relate to sort of financial supports for farmers, which we will have to engage, we will have to look at within the parameters of the EU state aid rules. So that will take a little bit of time, hopefully not too long. And my officials are actively looking at that to see what mechanism that we can, if we can, and what mechanism within the state aid rules that we can support farmers. It is an EU state aid requirement.
Can you give a time frame? When will you start paying farmers the compensation?
I can't give that time frame just yet, but what I would do and have encouraged farmers to do is to apply for the current scheme, because they will not be disadvantaged by any new scheme that we may well come up with, but it's important that they get those trees cleared as soon as possible, those diseased and dying ash trees, and they need to apply to the current ash dieback scheme to get that ball rolling. So that is important.
And will they be compensated in full for their loss?
I can't say what compensation package will be available. It is quite clear under the state aid rules that we cannot compensate for loss. I mean, we have been able to support for clearance and for replanting, but we will examine the state aid rules further to see if there are any other mechanisms by which we can support farmers.
You kind of said to me there that you're not sure if you can compensate them.
Well, we know we can't compensate for any loss of timber. I think that's the correct, or future. What we have been able to do thus far is support farmers to clear what's there and to replant. And we have been supporting farmers over the last 10 years to do that through 2 different schemes.
But you won't compensate them for their loss?
Currently, we don't think we can do that under the state aid rules, but we will explore if there are any other mechanisms by which we can.
How long will you be exploring that?
Well, hopefully not too long. I mean, my intent is to bring forward the implementation plan outlining how we're going to address all of the recommendations, and I would like to think that would be in the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, like has been said previously, confidence in the forestry sector is at an all-time low. And there are so many things against it, and you will appreciate that there's no more land being made, and land with the derogation rules, and also with Gresham House and sourcing and buying land. And then we have another dimension in Kerry where the national parks or environmental sections with approval from the government are buying in competition for land as well, and have bought places in Kerry. Would you agree with me that this will impact or is impacting on any planting, or will impact on any planting programme?
I agree and accept that there are challenges with land availability, and there are all sorts of pressures from different sectors. But I think at the end of the day, the vast majority of land in Ireland is owned by farmers, and it is about their choice about what they want to do with their land. If they want to rent it to someone, or whether they want to plant it, or whether they want to keep cattle or sheep or tillage or whatever, there's a choice there. And what we are, I suppose, really trying to support farmers is to consider forestry as that part of that choice as to how they might see their farm enterprise develop, in the coming years. And we believe what we've put together in this programme is an enticing package. There's a lot of options there for farmers to engage with forestry as part of their farm enterprise, and it's a choice I hope many will take.
Well, I do agree that farmers should be entitled to do what they wish to do with their own land, whatever it is. But for farmers that would have wished to buy extra land to plant, to plant it with timber, and you seem to be favouring timber for the construction of houses, but we won't have that. And there's another rule as well, the 80% rule, where you have to have 80% green ground vis-a-vis 20% of outside ground, or rough ground as we call it. Will you consider changing that rule now to allow fellas with the more marginal land to plant?
Unfortunately, no, and that particular rule is now gone, so we don't allow planting on unenclosed land. It's just too damaging from an environmental perspective, a carbon loss and a number of issues. So that unfortunately is not available. It still leaves quite a bit of land, that is suitable for forestry.
There's been a lot of meetings here inside this Oireachtas committee where we all made serious contributions and plenty contributions in relation to the granting of licences for felling licences. And he said it is improving a bit now, it is improving for some, but there's more having serious difficulty and waiting for a long time to get licences. Surely the presumption should be there that when you plant a forestry, that is going to be felled at some stage. And surely it should be more proactive, and if people with plantations should be, advised what they need to do about, these assessments or whatever, and not to be leaving till the last minute. Could they apply for their licenses a few years before?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that.
And how long would the licence last?
I think it depends on the licence, but I think a felling licence can last for up to 10 years. So they could feasibly apply for 10 years in advance and seek an extension, or there is that option. But certainly, I don't think there's been a case ever that we have not issued a felling licence. I think they've all been issued at some stage, and I appreciate that there were delays, but certainly the vast majority of those delays, they're all gone.
So,
just in terms of the figures, Deputy Healy-Rae, so if you look at private felling licences this year, we would have received 696, but we've issued 1,176. So we're issuing a lot more than what we've actually been receiving. And then for Kilsha felling licences, we would have received 750, and we issued 1,132. So we're more on top now of felling licences, and when they come in, they've been dealt with very promptly and issued. And as I say, we were. That's coming from a situation where this time 3 years ago we were in a really big crisis, coming out of the court case and the ramifications of that happened in 2019.
So go back to the mid-80s or so, and we were planting what we call boggy ground that time, and there has been massive growth of spruce timber in those places. In fact, they've been replanted again in recent times, in the last 10 years, 5 to 10 years or so. Are you saying to me that type of ground won't be or can't be planted anymore?
Yeah, there are restrictions in terms of depth of peat. So anything deeper than 30 centimetres now cannot be planted. But plant land under 30 centimetres depth of peat can. So there are other restrictions around SPAs and curlew nests and freshwater pearl mussel sites. Yeah, I think the land that is already planted can be replanted.
I suppose
but no new afforestation.
I suppose the point here as well, Deputy Healy-Rae, is we're putting massive taxpayers' money into the premiums for forestry, and therefore we have to make sure it's being planted in areas which serve the public interest well, in terms of where that money is being paid to put it in, because we're paying for the planting of it and we're paying for 20 years premiums to farmers. And the assessment in relation to peat-based soil then is that where it's above the 30 centimetres of depth, that actually from an emissions point of view and from a carbon point of view, despite the fact that a tree is growing in it, it actually emits more carbon than it actually sequesters. Whenever you're planting it in soil that has less than 30 centimetres of peat, it sequesters more carbon than it emits. And when you're planting it in mineral soils, it's very positive in terms of the carbon it sequesters. So, and also a lot has been learned from where it would have been planted over the years. So that's the reason, the rationale why, in terms of providing a licence, but also in terms of providing very significant funding for the planting of forestry. We have to make sure that we're doing it in appropriate places.
So, just a second, so to be clear, no more boggy ground being planted, only good land. That's what you're saying. And farmers are already under pressure with irrigation and everything. They're under pressure for more land, and so you're actually saying that there's a problem without saying it. There is a problem with sourcing land.
We'd be doing more harm than good if we were planting it in heavy peat soils.
Well, that's what you're saying, ministers, but I don't agree with you. And I suppose we have to be fair and admit that spruce trees would sequester way more carbon than broadleaf trees. Would you agree with that?
Okay, time up now then.
I have one other question, Kyle.
I mean, they can do if planted in the correct land, you know, as we said, if it's over 30, they wouldn't, but I mean, there's a
brief question now then.
Yes,
they do, yes, Minister Hackett, but were you to plant a spruce?
Are you aware, ministers, that there's a policy at the present time, especially in national parks, and that fallen timber can't be removed? It's supposed to be left there to rot. And are you also aware that this is where the lime insect thrives and has have harmed so many people that have visited our forests? Okay. And I just want them to answer this question. Okay. Are you aware that that's happening? Okay. It has been proven that this is where this lime insect thrives. That's hurting and harming so many people.
Okay, can you answer that, Minister?
I'm not familiar with where the Lyme disease comes from or where the insect resides. I don't know.
Well, I'm asking you to come back to the committee with the answer to that, because that's a very serious question, a very serious problem, especially around the national parks in Killarney.